Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a part 2 of my first trimester recap. So if you have not seen part 1, go ahead and pause and you're gonna wanna go watch part 1. So I will go ahead and link part 1 down below. Otherwise you can just find it on my channel. So go ahead, watch that real quick and then come back. All right, now if you have seen part 1, thank you so much for watching and thanks for coming back to part 2. I'm really excited to just finish out sharing the rest of my first trimester and just everything that went down with that. I promise part 2 is a lot shorter than part 1. So if you can get through part 1, then you'll be able to get through this pretty fast. All right, I don't have too much else to say other than part 2 does pick up directly right off of part 1. So if you need a refresher, go back and watch the end of part 1 and then resume this video for part 2. Okay, let's get into it. Anyways, that was routine to do all the blood work. And they ended up calling me back 3 days later on September 14th, telling me that my blood type is A negative. And I actually didn't know my blood type before that. I probably should have. But my blood type was A negative and I would need to come back in for they said this is more rare. But I would need to come back in for a shot called Rogam. And so I did a little research on that and was a little confused, but they didn't explain it the best to me. But as far as I can understand, basically, and at that point I was, I was like I was slightly over 7 weeks. And I had to go back in because my blood type is A negative, which means because it's negative, it's a little bit more of a rare blood type. So this probably isn't the case for most women, but if you do happen to have that A negative blood type, I did have to go back in and get a shot. It was not fun. It actually wasn't that bad, but it's in your butt. So that kind of hurt just a little, but you have to go back in and get that because they don't know your baby's blood type. And if my baby's blood type happened to be not negative, also if it was a positive blood type, like A positive, which is I think a lot more common, then my body would try and fight off the baby. It would think that the baby is something foreign and like my immune system could potentially attack the baby. And I had never heard of that before because it is more rare. So I had to go in and get that shot, and that shot just prevents my body from possibly attacking baby. And that is not what I wanted to happen. So I went ahead, got that done, and it was really quick. It honestly wasn't too painful, but just keep that in mind if you happen to know your blood type or that could happen. And I didn't know it could happen. Then after that, I will share, I'll try and make this really fast. But right before I went into my second trimester, I had a pretty big scare, a second one, and it was not the light little bleeding that I had the first time. I did have, when did it start? Let me see. Yes, that's what it was. I had my second appointment, which was a normal scheduled appointment on September 19th, and that I was 11 weeks, 6 days. So I was almost 12 weeks. Baby we could hear heartbeat, baby was fine. They didn't do an ultrasound that time. They just did the heart Doppler, and I was feeling pretty good at that point, and appointment went fine. But it was that night I had a lot of bleeding, and it was really scary. I thought, okay, this could be normal, could not be. So if it continues in the morning, I'll call the OB. So that next morning, I woke up. It was a little better, but still there. And I ended up calling the OB. They told me I could either come in for an ultrasound or I could monitor it. Well, by the time I had had that conversation with them, it was starting to lighten up. The bleeding was really lighten up, like there was hardly anything. And so since they weren't like telling me to get in there right now, I was like, okay, I think I'll just monitor it then. So I monitored it, and that rest of that day, I was at work and everything. It was fine. It had stopped for the most part. And right before I went to leave work, it was about 5 o'clock, and it was Tuesday, endish of September. Yeah, September 20th. I went to leave work, and I could just feel like a lot of bleeding. And I kind of went to the bathroom, freaked out, realized I was bleeding a lot again, and immediately just felt like something wasn't right. So at that point, the OB office was closed. So I told Daniel, I was kind of freaking out. He was coming from work. I actually went over to my parents' house, and my parents drove me to the ER. Daniel met us there as soon as he was able to from work, and me and Daniel waited in the ER that night. I think we were there for like 8.5 hours. We waited in the waiting room for about 6 of those hours. Finally went back at 11-ish p.m. and got a room, and then they were able to do an ultrasound and confirm that baby. It was a long night. First of all, before they did the ultrasound, they took like a ton of my blood, like 2 giant vials. I don't know why they needed that much of my blood, but they did that. I hadn't eaten or drank anything since being at the ER for 6 hours, and I hadn't eaten since like lunch that day. Hadn't drank any water, and so I passed out. Plus, the guy that took my blood was training, and he literally, like, there's blood dripping down my arm. So that was just a lot. I was overwhelmed. I was stressed. I did end up passing out, and because I passed out, they had to do an EKG on me to make sure my heart was fine. It was a whole mess, but basically I was fine. Like, I didn't really need the EKG. It's just mandatory that they do that. So they did the EKG. I was fine. Then we waited about 2 more hours in the room till the doctor came in at 2 in the morning, 2 a.m. Yeah. Did an ultrasound, could confirm that baby was fine. Baby had a strong heartbeat. Baby was bouncing all around. Like, I can say he now because it's a boy, but we did just announce that. But he was moving all around like crazy, and that was such a relief to know. But I still was wondering why I was bleeding so much, and they didn't have their full staff in at the hospital, the ultrasound techs, to do a more advanced ultrasound. So all that to say, I had to end up going to the OB the next day, which was Wednesday. I took the day off work because I was mentally and physically exhausted, and I went back to my OB. They did a full ultrasound. Baby was fine. Just come to find out, I had a oh my gosh, what's it called? Subchorionic hematoma. Subchorionic hematoma. Yes, I think that's what it's called. And basically, she described it as a blood vessel, or not a blood vessel, like a blood blister. A blood blister that forms on the lining of your uterus, and it can burst. So for me, it had burst, and so instead of my body just absorbing the blood, my body started shedding the blood, which a lot of times your body just absorbs it, sometimes it sheds it. And I had never heard of this happening, but now that I've had this experience, I know so many other women that have gone through this same thing, been scared to death, and then it was just a hematoma bleeding itself out. So all that to say, heavy bleeding like that is not normal in a pregnancy. But it might not be what you fear it to be. So always go to the OB, get things checked out. With that, I ended up bleeding for about another week, because I think I bled for about a week, week and a half. But at that point, I knew what it was. I knew it was normal to continue bleeding until it was all through my system. And I think with that, I experienced a little bit of cramping, but that was also very normal. So yeah, that was really scary to go through. I am so thankful that baby was okay and is okay. And yeah, I just praise the Lord for that, because were a scary few days, but he brought us through them, and he is protector, and yes. So really, really blessed to have a beautiful baby boy on the way. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I think I got to most of the questions that I had. And yes, we did obviously find out the gender, like I just said. We just announced a couple days ago we are having a boy, and we are so excited. I can't wait to be a boy mama. But yeah, we are just thankful for a healthy baby. And oh, I will give you guys a little bump date real quick, and then I'm gonna wrap up this video. But if you guys want to see, I am at 23 weeks right now, or I guess 22 weeks, sorry. 22 weeks, and I'm trying to, I have a really tight dress on, but yeah, this is the bump. He is definitely bumping. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to make a second trimester recap, and once I'm through with my second trimester. And yeah, let me know if you want me to make any more pregnancy content. I will talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you guys so much for watching the rest of this video. Thank you for watching part 1 and 2. I loved sharing my experience, and obviously this is just my pregnancy experience so far. Everybody's is different. So I love hearing everybody's stories. So if you want, you can in the comments let me know how your journey has been similar, different. I'd love to hear it. Yeah, that's all I have for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. You're gonna wanna subscribe because I do have more content coming out, pregnancy and non-pregnancy related. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.